Hello, my name is Monica Walker, and I'm here today with John Sweetnam of Coaching Navigator, and we're continuing a conversation about his newest program, Conflict Evolution. We've been having some very interesting discussion about different aspects of conflict evolution and kind of how to get ourselves into the zone of resolving conflict in our lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, carry on.
Well, we've been on this journey for some time now about what are the underlining keys, the underlining gearbox, so to speak, as a trucker that drives this process so seamlessly. It's a synchro-mesh transmission. It's smooth. It's almost automatic when we practice it. So the last gear in this process today that moves it forward is choice. And I think that it is one of the most powerful. Sounds simple enough, choice. So let me just start this by saying, maybe you could share with our audience today when you've made a choice that changed your life.
Sure. So a really significant sort of choice point for me was at a period in time when I was living out in Vancouver on the West Coast. And I was, in a way, it felt like I was living in a bit of a utopia. I was surrounded by an amazing community of people. I had an amazing partner. Lots of really good things happening for me, yet I wasn't happy. I just wasn't feeling like it was enough, and I was stuck. And, various things happened, sort of synchronicities, and just sort of listening to myself, I came to the conclusion that I needed to go on a solo trip. And I chose to go to the UK and live by myself. And I left the whole life that I had to make that step just because I felt it's something I had to do. And that very significantly changed the course of my life afterwards.
Mm-hmm. So like myself and a lot of clients, most people would share a choice point. I like that word, choice point. That forever changed the direction of their life. Forever. And I just want to honor that, is to just stop for a moment and breathe in the one element of that that still is a go-to resilient. I call that the space of resilience. That in that story, in that choice point, there's a tower of resilience. So what would that one point be, looking back on that?
So where did I find resilience in myself?
Yeah, well, in that experience, I'm hearing a lot of resilience.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of affirmation. I'm hearing that, dang, there was something in me that wasn't really resonating. I wasn't having that meaningful purpose life I imagined. There was something quietly niggling in my ear. Something was talking to me, and I needed to get far enough away from where I was at to know that the choice was new, not a recycled one, that it wasn't being influenced by undue conversation, a willingness for people to share and impose on me or allow me to do something as if they were kingmakers, but that I would go to a new land, like Marco Polo, a new language even. And I could be Columbus, I could be Drake, I could be anyone out there. And I had time to really stand in another continent of knowing, almost another universe. And when you step away, there was one thing that stood out, having had that experience. And it's that one thing that guides, like a north-pointing arrow, the next stages of our life.
Yeah, so for me, I think that probably would have been a sense of who I was, independent of other people. Because up to that point, I had been very other-focused. I was one of those people who, relationship-oriented person. And stepping out of that place where I had all of that and leaving it kind of somehow allowed me to find who I was as an individual in a more defined way.
So do you think it confused the people you left behind?
Yes, quite possibly. Though at the same time, they were pretty, they were the kind of people who could support people doing that sort of thing, Yeah.
So having had that experience, you were in England for how long?
A year and a half.
A year and a half. So what has that meant now? And when you make a decision that's a little bit risk-taking, a little bit challenging, and you know that the value of Monica is not dependent on others, that it's self-regulated, self-fulfilled.
What does that mean to
Yeah,
me?
to you right now, having that core, having made that definite choice, defined choice.
I guess for me, that was the beginning of a greater self-love that I needed to have, because up to that point I was relying a lot on others and on my external world to give me what I needed. And it was a sort of self-sufficiency and a choice to be strong for myself. That's what it meant to me, I think.
And that would kind of sum up our program. Self-sufficiency, self-love, self-care, having the validation that it's okay for me to have needs and make requests of self and others, to have this life we innately, at some deep level, know is for us. It's not the same for Tom or Mary or Helen, or it's just not the same. Everybody has something inside, an innate knowing in their DNA, if I can use that word, in the innate knowing of where we need to get to. And it seems in my life, and maybe the clients I've spoken to, that if we get too far off track, the universe has a way of, as my sister would say, kicking us in the hiney to move us in the direction we need to. And some it's done with some pain, some with some illness, some with some relationship triangles that are difficult. But it does seem the universe is somewhat self-correcting. And I like the way you say self-love. I got connected to the power of self, which is not selfishness. I want you to know that there's no way that loving self is selfishness. That taking care of self is not selfishness. Taking care of self and being whole, being authentic, being wholehearted, opens up for us to be present with others in a way that the love is so natural, so free, that it's beyond what we often consider love. Because it really speaks to what I hear in you, that your presence has now a definitive scope. The presence of Monika has been very settled. It's strong. It has foundationally rooted in your ability to be in love with life, because you can love yourself. And it took 1.5 years. Sounds like a long time, but it's a short time. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're looking at choice at the end of our program. The people feel they have in every situation of challenge, when there's something niggling away that doesn't support our self-esteem, doesn't support our game, or doesn't support our values, or doesn't support what we hope to achieve, that in that choice point, that we will have that moment to step outside needing approval from others, or needing to be validated by others, but to know we're enough, to have that courageous connection to self, to have that ability to recognize that there's something alive in us more than we think, that we're more than we think we are, and you've proven it. And whether it's 1.5 years or 5 years, it makes no difference, but at that point, at that moment of choice, we are more than we ever dreamed. And we're more connected to who we believe ourselves to be. And we have that connectedness that allows us to be free. Choice represents freedom, connectedness, and spirit. And really helps define us living that life of meaningful purpose, something that really gets value. What the heck am I here for? What's it all about? Kind of questions. And we feel whole. And this heart-based program is staying connected to that wholeness of heart. Because what we think about it is the tragedy. The thought about, oh my gosh, if I leave, I'll lose my friend, I'll lose my lover, I'll lose my job, I'll lose my whatever, is just a thought. And the choice is precipitated in our program by changing a thought. We say in our program, you're one thought away from resolving your inner conflict. Just one thought. I can do this. I will do this. I'll try this. I'll work with this. I'll be willing to risk. One thought. And a thought, one choice, you call it a choice point, I can call it a thought. A divine thought, a divine spirit unfolding to a choice that forever changed your view of yourself. And that's this program in a nutshell. Choice.
John, just another quick question. What about those times for people when having because it takes a degree of self-responsibility to make a choice, doesn't it? That knowing that you have the power in that situation. And sometimes that's, I know it's certainly been hard for me, and I've witnessed it in friends and family, that it can be hard to take that responsibility sometimes, to even admit to ourselves we have that kind of power in our lives. What do you think about that?
Well, Marianne Williamson said it best. How do we not shine our greatest light on the world? How do we stay in fear? How do we not choose to go out and live our best life? That's my paraphrase, but it's been quoted by Nelson Mandela and a number of people, and it is the truth. How can we not be? And here's the drill, is that the exquisiteness of having choice and having the confidence, and you alluded to it and you said, I felt I was coming from a community of people that could support my journey. Remember that? Mm-hmm. So you could step outside of yourself being supported. And what you're really saying, and this is the key, you weren't judged wrongly, nor maybe even rightly, but you were, the permission for you to go was freely offered. It's that judgment, the restless need to judge others based on our own limiting belief ourselves or compare. But the judgment is the downfall of choice. Because in some little judgment, will you be safe? Will you be enough? What will you do about your job? Will you go ahead? Will you be behind? Will you be alone? Will you be sick? Will you be okay? The judgment is for never ending. The mind takes us on this trip. This thought in the mind is about judgment. And that has been the challenge of how people don't enter into choice, because they let this restless, whatever it is, this need for people to judge, to maybe hold themselves up or put other people down or not being enough themselves, they cannot be in empathy, and they want to judge. The minute I want to reach out just a bit too far, then I scare them, because then they start to touch the edges of their not enoughness, of their not willing to risk. So I make them very uncomfortable. And when I can stop judging myself and turn down the volume, just like on a radio, turn down the volume so that I don't hear the judgment, and stay connected to myself with a little bit of degree of protection, that I don't feel the feelings of that they're all sharing their fear, then I can step into choice easily. And that defines our ability to hang in the situation which we call conflict, because I'm cool. I've been there. It's not pretty. It's not perfect. It's messy like mashed potatoes. Some people like mayonnaise and milk, and some people know I'm dairy free and don't put this in it. No, I'm too much salt. But just good old fashioned white potatoes, cut up, mashed up, and thrown on a plate. Gosh darn, isn't that good? You know, Irish, I love potatoes. You know, so just mash them up for me. I'll put my own salt and pepper on. But if my sister comes and no dairy, did you cook them here and no that, and did you put any? I used to put sour cream in them, you know, but today I've learned to ease back a little bit, just do the straight potatoes. And I think life is like that. Sometimes we try to make it too fancy.
Thank you.
And choice is just a choice, just one thing, one choice, just mashed potatoes, plain old potatoes whipped up.
Thank you, John, for sharing, for your sense of humor.
Yeah, thank you.